Pod Radio. Today I'd like to go over an article that I found at godandscience.org. And this article is on the archaeological and anthropological problems that are in the Book of Mormon. And I think that this is a very important subject to go into because Mormons are very active in their missionary work. And most of you have probably had a visit from the Mormons at one time or another. And many of you probably know that the Mormons are required to serve as missionaries. I think it's still for 2 years. I know it used to be. But they're required to serve as missionaries for 2 years when they turn 19, if they were born into that religion. So there are a lot of Mormon missionaries out there. But Mormons, like I said, they're very active. And when someone is new as a Christian, and they're new in the Christian faith, and they're not biblically sound, and they don't know what the Bible teaches, and they may not even know if the Bible can be relied on. They may not know about the textual evidence for the reliability of the Bible. So these nice young men and these nice young women may come knocking on their doors, and they let them in. And Mormons can be very pleasant people. They come across as very nice people, and they have high ethical standards that they live by. But they are preaching another gospel, and they are preaching another Christ, and they are leading countless souls to eternal destruction in the process. You don't get to heaven by being good enough. You don't get there by being a good person. If that's all it took, Christ would not have needed to die on the cross. You can never be good enough. The only way that you can get to heaven is through Christ's atoning death on the cross. But that's not what Mormons teach. They teach that all you have to do is be good. And then whatever you're lacking in goodness, maybe Christ can make up the difference for you somehow. And that will get you into the celestial kingdom. But that's heresy. It's just plain heresy. And the fact is that Mormons are teaching a false religion, and they're teaching another Christ. And so that's what I'd like to discuss today. Now, I think many people know that this is a cult. But through some excellent PR work, they have convinced a lot of people that they are a valid Christian religion and that they're not a cult. But nothing could be farther from the truth. And a lot of people aren't aware of that. Especially, like I said, new believers in Christ, or people who have never had any faith before at all. And they think, yeah, this looks good. Well, we'll give this a try. And they don't know that they're getting involved with a cult who is very good at brainwashing. And I do know what I'm talking about here because I was involved with the Mormon religion for years. And I have family members who have been Mormons, and even some through marriage that are still Mormons. So I'm not saying things about this that I don't have first-hand experience with. Now, this article at godandscience.org is by Rich Deem. And in the article, he goes into a little bit about the Book of Mormon. Now, the Book of Mormon claims that it's a record of the inhabitants of the Americas during the period from 2000 BC to 40 AD. And the Book of Mormon makes many claims about anthropology, about the anthropology of pre-Columbian American cultures, and about the history of the pre-Columbian American cultures. But Joseph Smith, who is the author of the Book of Mormon, had very little knowledge. Actually, judging from what he wrote, he may not have had any knowledge at all of pre-Columbian American civilizations at that time. In fact, what he did was he took accounts from the Old and the New Testament, and he borrowed heavily from these accounts, and he elaborated on them, and he gave them a new twist. And he wrote something that is very convincing for a lot of people who don't know anything about the archaeological and historical evidence of pre-Columbian American cultures. Now, for example, Joseph Smith was unaware that the early Native American peoples that he was writing about, they were part of the Stone Age. This was a Stone Age civilization, and they were significantly less advanced than Hebrews and other Middle Eastern cultures of biblical times. So he is making quite a few anthropological mistakes in the Book of Mormon. Now, for one thing, one of the errors that he makes is in metallurgy, the use of metals. Now, metallurgy did not appear in the Americas until about the 9th century A.D. However, the Book of Mormon describes the use of iron, steel, brass, copper, silver, and gold even before the birth of Christ. Now, these metals were said to be used for coins and weapons and buildings. LDS apologists claim that these items would not survive in the tropical climates found in much of the Americas. However, both gold and silver coins are very resistant to decay, and they would certainly be expected to survive. You know, for thousands of years, even in tropical environments, these kinds of metals would survive. But much more condemning is the fact that the art of the period, which is very abundant, there is a lot of art of these pre-Columbian cultures, and nowhere in the art of this culture does it portray the existence of any metallurgical products or metallurgical activity until at least 1000 AD. So another problem that we come across in the Book of Mormon is the weapons of war. And the Book of Mormon describes the presence of chariots in the New World. However, archaeologists have found no evidence of chariots. In fact, there's no evidence of wheeled vehicle usage in the period described in the Book of Mormon. Scimitars were an old world weapon of war, and they're also mentioned throughout the Book of Mormon. However, they have not been found to have existed in the New World. And once again, LDS apologists, they try to explain this away. They're always trying to explain the facts away, and they come up with some amazing stories to do this, but they just don't line up with the facts. But these LDS apologists, what they do is they cite that Mesoamericans used a weapon called the machajito, and they said that this weapon is possibly the scimitar mentioned in the Book of Mormon. However, the machajito was a hard wood club with obsidian blades, and it's quite different from the heavy two-handed curved steel blade of the scimitar. Now, the Book of Mormon expressly states that the American people of the period used weapons of war that were made out of metal, but none of these weapons have ever been found. There's no archaeological evidence of these weapons, and one thing that we know is that with the Bible, when archaeologists go throughout the Holy Land, they find ample archaeological evidence in support of the Bible. You know, almost every time they turn a spade, they are finding more evidence, more archaeological evidence to support the Bible. It's just everywhere. It abounds in the Middle East. But there is no archaeological evidence of this kind found for the Book of Mormon in the Americas at all. It just simply does not exist. Now, another problem is the crops and the agriculture that Joseph Smith mentions in the Book of Mormon. Now, he described the agriculture of the Americas as being similar to that found during biblical times in the Middle East. However, most Native American cultures were hunter-gatherers, and the kinds of crops grown in the Americas did not utilize plow agriculture that is required for crops such as wheat and barley that are described in the Book of Mormon. And in fact, foods that are known to have been used in ancient America, such as chocolate and lima beans, squash, potatoes, tomatoes, peppers, etc., they are not even included in the Book of Mormon at all. Now, this article